Welcome to the National Black Leadership and Empowerment Project series, Ask an Elder. Today we will observe an open and honest conversation between a young man and his grandfather.
Hello, everybody. My name is Vincent Woodard. I'm with my grandfather.
And I'm Daniel Glee, a proud grandfather. And we're here today to discuss the importance of voting.
Okay, my first question for you is, what was life like before Black people were able to vote?
Well, a lot of us were slaves in the South. There were free blacks in the North. There was no voting for most people who were white before, unless you owned property. Only people who owned property had voted. Then Andrew Jackson came in and got voting for all white males. Blacks didn't have the right to vote until after the Civil War. In 1865, Congress passed the 15th Amendment, which gave black men the right to vote. Women did not have the right to vote, period. There were Ida B. Wells, who was a black lady who fought for the right to vote. Susan B. Anthony, white woman, and Katie Stanton, another white woman who fought for the right to vote. But we're very fortunate because this week is the week of the 19th Amendment. 100 years ago, in 1920, women finally got the right to vote. But it was still suppressed. The right to vote was suppressed, and it's still being suppressed in many states. But people are still fighting for it. Even John Lewis, who got his head hit in on the Pettit Bridge in the South, marching for the right to vote. It's a precious right because voting gives you power. You have power. That's the only thing that most people have is to vote, and that's their power. We need that power in order to make changes because the changes we have are important. I'm very proud of being a black man because we live in a good time. I can remember, I'm 80 years old, I can remember when blacks didn't live as fortunately as they live now. It came from the right to vote, which gave us rights to do a lot of things. You're a college man. You're a senior this year, and I'm proud of that. We're all proud of that. And you're going to graduate and go on to do even greater things. But you're going to use your power to vote. You're old enough to vote. You're 21 years old now. You're a grown man.
Okay, but you say we have the power to vote. Do we really have the power to vote if the popular vote? Last election, Hillary won the popular vote, but Trump still won. So how impactful is it really our vote?
Well, that's the system we live under. It's an electoral system. The electoral system was set up in colonial times to keep the power in the hands of the few. Even if everybody voted for one candidate, if they didn't have certain states that went along with that vote, then they couldn't control. This was the right that rich people in this country kept to themselves. The way to get rid of that is to have Congress pass voting for all. That'll be suffrage for all. Whoever gets the most votes will rule. Get rid of the Electoral College, have the popular vote for everybody.
So you talk about the Electoral College needs to get removed. But that's not going to happen anytime soon. So what impact does my vote have really right now? We really have no control.
We have to show up at the polls. The press will be there. It'll be so glaring that the person who won by an overwhelming amount of votes. Then nobody else can say that they were cheated out of it. That's the only way you can do it. We have to go to the polls in large numbers, Nobody can say, well, I'm going to stay home this time. No, you can't stay home this time. You got to get out and go vote. So you can get rid of that myth that, oh, I was cheated out the vote. I should have the presidency.
So even though Trump is evil, so is Biden. He's also a racist too. There's been pictures that's come out with him, with the leader of the KKK, and also Kamala Harris. She had a track record of incarcerating black men at a high rate. So either pick is not a good pick in the reality. So who would you vote for?
I'm voting for Biden. I'm voting for Biden because I know Biden. I know his work with President Obama. I trust Obama, so does millions of people. That's important to me. What Obama says is important.
Why is what Obama says important to you?
Because in 8 years, there was not one hint of scandal.
Okay.
In 8 years, there was not one hint of betrayal. This man has earned the trust of millions of people.
Okay.
So Kamala Harris as prosecuting attorney, all people are not good. There are crazy people everywhere in every race.
I mean, you say all these things, but how can you really convince me? Just because he worked with somebody doesn't mean he's not a bad person, regardless. So how can you convince me to say that I'm voting for the better person? And when I see him and Trump as an equal person, nothing. I don't think Trump's better than him. I don't think he's worse than him.
Well, you look at the track record. You can go by his track record. You go back to 1975, when Trump was in charge of renting apartments in his family apartment houses.
Mm-hmm.
He did not rent. He refused to rent to African Americans. I remember the case, there was a black nurse, well-trained, well-educated, who wanted to rent an apartment and had the money. He refused to rent to her because she was black, not because of any other reason. You look at the track record of a person. That's what you do when you get ready to go to vote. You study the track record of that person or persons to find out where they have stood over a period of time.
Yeah.
We know where Joe Biden has stood. We know where Trump has stood. We know what he said he's going to do.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to know where the person has stood over a period of time.
But this is what I'm saying. There's been recent reports Biden was against like desegregation. Biden has several pictures of Biden like with KKK members. It's nothing new. And you say that it's propaganda, but it's not like it was pushed by mainstream media, which is controlled by major parties. This is something that was put on a social media platform, which was put out by like random people. It's not put out by
you might be right in a way, because when he served in the Senate, there were Strom Thurmond, a racist senator from South Carolina, that he worked with across the aisle.
Mm.
There was Jesse Helms, a racist senator from North Carolina, who he worked with. Sometimes you have to work with people that you might necessarily not like in order to get what you want. If they have power and votes and positions, and you can persuade them over to your side, you might not agree with what they agree with, but sometimes you have to learn to form coalitions that you do work with people that you might not necessarily like in order to get what you want. Sometimes you have to have coalitions. Sometimes you might not have all the votes. Getting votes is important. Sometimes you have to make horse trade deals in order to get the vote. That means that if you work with me on this, I'll work with you on that. You might not necessarily like the person, but if you get what you want for your constituents, then you work with the person. And I'm sure he did. Of course he worked with people like that in order to get what he wanted for the people. And he was a senator from Delaware. For the people from Delaware and for the civil rights movement and other people like that, you have to work with other people. The vote is a tricky thing. If you don't have enough votes, you won't get what you want. And in Congress, there are 100 senators, 435 members of the House of Representatives. That's a lot of horse trading. You give me something, I'll give you something. That's the way the votes go sometimes. And that's what you have to do. You can't always say, my way or no way. It doesn't work that way. And the same thing in life. If you get married in the future, you're going to find out your wife, you can't have your way all the time with your wife. You have to compromise and horse trade and do things. That's the way to get the vote and to keep the vote. Joe Biden is a politician, a good politician. Obama called him his brother. You don't call a person your brother unless you have faith in him. Unless you have faith in him that they're going to stand up to your standards. And this president does not equal the last president. The last president was a president. A president responsible after he's voted in office is to protect the people. Protect the people. This man said, I don't have no responsibility. I'm not responsible for this disease. This disease has killed 175,000 Americans. It didn't have to be that way. He could have said at the beginning, put on the mask, stay 6 feet away from each other. no big parties. He didn't say that. He could have come out hard as a strong president. He had the power. He had the power of the presidency. And this pandemic has killed so many Americans who didn't have to die and still killing them. And this is a sad situation. That's why the vote is so important. You have to use that vote to get him out or to get any politician out who's not doing their job. It's just like if you worked for me in my store or my factory or my company, and if you weren't doing the job, I'll get you out. I'm not going to let you stay in my company and not do the job. This politician is not doing the job. They voted him in, and he hasn't worked. He looks at television, they say, all day long. What about working? We have to go to work and work 8 hours a day. Why can't he work? You sitting up in the mansion, the White House mansion, looking at television all day long. That's a shame. But we got to use that power. We got to use that vote. And we have to come out in large numbers. I mean, I'm not going to sit in the ballot. I'm going to the polls, as I've always gone throughout my adult life. I'm going to the polls. Only when I'm sick or ready to drop will I not go to the polls. I'm going to use my vote. The vote is too important to be wasted. It's too important to say, oh, my vote doesn't count. Your vote counts. It counts. It counts for the future. It counts for your future. And when you have a family, have children, it counts for them. You're preparing for the future. You're going to be a college graduate this school year. That's going to be a smile on my face from here to North Carolina because you have achieved. And so without the vote, we wouldn't have what we have now. It's very important. It really is. Thank you for asking the questions.
No problem. It was good talking with you.
I appreciate it.
This message has been brought to you by the National Black Leadership and Empowerment Project.